Alrighty. This is going to be my quant presentation for CAS 204. So what I did for this was I sent a questionnaire out to for anyone student athletes after I did my research, and we'll kind of dive into the research first, and I'll kind of get into detail of the questions I asked and why I did that. So for just quick research, I did a lot of research on this. I did happen to I just picked three sources that I think really stood out to me. So the first one is when making the transition from a student athlete to an old member of society, it can be a difficult time for many of these student athletes because it's all they've known their whole lives, and they can tend to struggle because they lose that sense of identity for them. And I did really like this because most people are not going to be playing professionally. Probably about 99% of them will be playing professionally out of college, so it's definitely a big transition. And then the next one was just generally talk about how um, being a student athlete can actually help a lot of people, you know, gain skills of leadership and teamwork for skills later in life. And then the third one, it mentions the stigma of not receiving counseling, like going to receive counseling for to help you manage everything as a student athlete. I thought that was really important. It just gives the positives about the mental health of students, and I think that's something that should really be talked about a little more. And so I did find, a gap because there was little to no, anything of this. And it's the effect of being a student athlete, how it affects your grades and how it actually affects your performance in the field. So let's get into the questionnaire a little bit. So keep in mind, once again, only Brandywine student athletes. So I sent it out to about 12 people. I got about 8 responses. I actually got 8 responses. So the main questions that we're going to focus on today are going to be these first two right here. Being a student affects how you perform in your sport, and being an athlete affects how you perform in the classroom. Now, these are all on a 1 to 5 scale. One being so for being a student athlete affects how you perform in the classroom. One is not at all. It does not affect it. I go about my life normally. Two being maybe a little bit. Three being neutral. Um, Four being yes, it does affect it a decent amount, and then five is definitely affects it. So same kind of scale for questions 1 and 2, and we have the results right here. So let's kind of get into the numbers from these. So for question 1, we had a mean of 3.88, a median of 4, a mode of 5, and a standard deviation of 1.05. And so for question 2, we had a mean of 4, a median of 4, a mode of 4, a lot of fours there. And then we had a standard deviation of 0.71. Okay, so let's go to the next slide where we kind of break this all down on a bell curve for the 3 standard deviations. Now, it was difficult to get a bell curve that actually looked good, so I tried my best here, just so we could kind of see. So if we look kind of at question 1, is was going to be the top set of numbers there. Um, we have a pretty wide range out of this bell curve. Sorry about that. We have a wide range out of this bell curve, so we actually see that the numbers will go out of the 5 number range, and so that shows us that we're leaning a lot towards the other side, um, towards the more that it affects people, but it does creep down into that lower range as well, just a little bit, but for the most part, it seems like most people were living around that neutral too. I think it definitely somewhat affects me. So for that first question, and for the second question, we definitely see the minus side of it being a little bit higher up towards those middle numbers. So we're only down to a 2.58 there, and but we once again we do go over that 5, so we'll kind of leave that out there. But so this shows me really that in the case of the second question, where their athletics affects their time in the classroom, we definitely see that affects it's more effect. It happens more than the other way around. So let's go on to kind of what we took from that. So I'm gonna kind of skip that last part, the last one. That's just something from the other questions that I felt necessary to throw in there. Um, so we'll just kind of skip to the third slide. Kind of just the first one kind of breaks down the first two, and then the third back bullet point here kind of just summarizes both of them. So we see that student athletes are more stressed by their schoolwork than their athletic performance. Flat out. I mean, it's close, but definitely more affected by their schoolwork than their athletic performance. But obviously, trying to be an athlete and while worrying about schoolwork can be difficult at times. It's just so now we're on to the conclusion. So actions we should take. I think we need to take stress off student athletes. I think it's a big topic, and I think as a student athlete myself, I believe it can be really difficult at sometimes. So giving them more access to tutors, maybe more time to study, setting set study days, study hours for them. That would be a great thing. And then I would say expand the research to different universities to see what they get, maybe even expand our own campus. But we want to avoid D1 programs because they obviously get much better treatment there. Sometimes they don't even have to go to class. They'll just pass them. They'll give them a B, say get out of here. And then, in my opinion, I think everyone's going to have a different experience. So that's why I think it would be better kind of to expand on this. And I think it's also too important to kind of break it up maybe by sport, because which sport you play matters. This was only from the golf and baseball team, so my data, and they seem to be affected more than maybe let's say your basketball players, because you're taken out for 5 hours a day out of your classes. So you just you're missing valuable time in the classroom, and yeah, so I think it can be very different for everyone. All right, and that kind of concludes everything. Here's a quick look at my reference page, and thank you for watching.